The American Revolution did not end when George Washington crossed the Delaware. In many ways, it was only a monumental turning point that re-inspired hope. Because winning a revolution required more than the courage of generals and soldiers. It required messengers, craftsmen, teachers, and ordinary citizens, and people that history sometimes forgets. When we think of the founding of America, names like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin often come to mind. But in addition to those famous people, stood others whose actions helped shape the future of our nation. These included a silversmith, a seamstress, and a Prussian. One rode through the darkness. One helped train an army into a professional military force. One created an enduring symbol of hope and unity that still flies today. And together, they helped save a revolution and to create America from its earliest days. By 1777, the Continental Army still faced enormous challenges. Many soldiers lacked experience. Training was inconsistent. Supplies remained scarce. Discipline was weak. Standards were yet to be developed, and determining roles and responsibilities for each echelon of leadership needed to be created. Even though Washington's soldiers were brave, bravery alone could not defeat the British Empire. Then, help arrived from Europe. His name was Baron Friedrich von Steuben. The man who arrived at Valley Forge looked unlikely to change history. He spoke little English. His uniform was covered in medals, and his background sometimes raised many questions. Washington saw something valuable: military experience. Von Steuben had served within the powerful Prussian army of Frederick the Great. Europe considered Prussians to be among the finest military forces in the world, and Washington desperately needed professional training. At Valley Forge, von Steuben began transforming the Continental Army. He taught soldiers how to march, how to maneuver, how to fire efficiently, how to use bayonets, how to operate as a disciplined fighting force. He worked directly beside the men, correcting mistakes, demonstrating techniques, training officers, and building confidence. And eventually, he wrote what became known simply as the Blue Book, officially titled Regulations for the Order and Discipline of the Troops of the United States. As our nation's first doctrine for professionalizing our military forces, it continued for decades to shape military training throughout America. Washington later said von Steuben's work had changed the Army itself. The Revolution now possessed something it desperately needed: professional soldiers. Today, many people imagine the Blue Book as an old historic artifact, a book preserved behind museum glass, something important but distant. But that mistakes what it truly was. This was not created as a ceremonial document. It was a field manual, a working guide, carried through the Revolutionary War itself. Inside its pages were instructions on formation, discipline, camp organization, drill movements, weapons handling, and the daily structure needed to transform volunteers into soldiers. The Continental Army was facing the most powerful military empire on earth. Courage alone would not defeat them. Hope alone would not ensure victories. America needed an army capable of standing shoulder to shoulder against trained professionals. Over 2 centuries later, that legacy lives on. I still have my 220-year-old copy of von Steuben's manual that once belonged to Major William P. Shreve during the Civil War. I've used this historic manual during my nearly 3 decades of military service to teach generations of Army non-commissioned officers about the origins of our profession of arms and our national history. Because inside those worn pages is the foundation of an idea that disciplined soldiers, trained leaders, and ordinary Americans working together can accomplish what once seemed impossible. But wars are not won by soldiers alone. Sometimes, symbols of hope matter almost as much. And one of the most recognizable symbols in American history began during these years: the American flag. Many Americans know the name Betsy Ross. According to popular tradition, George Washington and members of a congressional committee visited her upholstery shop in Philadelphia. They discussed creating a flag for the new nation. Ross supposedly suggested an important change: 5-pointed stars instead of 6-pointed stars, a design easier to produce. Historians continued debating parts of this story. Some evidence remains uncertain, but whether legend or reality, the flag itself became something larger than any individual. For soldiers fighting in winter camps, for citizens risking everything, for a young nation struggling to survive, the flag represented hope, unity, purpose, and eventually the United States itself. Then there was Paul Revere. Many remember him because of one dramatic night: "The British are coming." But the real story is even more fascinating. Paul Revere was not a soldier by profession. He was a silversmith, an engraver, a craftsman. He was also deeply involved in patriot networks even before the revolution began. Revere helped organize communications between colonial leaders. He carried messages, he gathered information, and he worked closely with resistance groups throughout Boston. Then came April 18th, 1775. British troops prepared to march towards Concord. Their mission was to seize weapons and arrest patriot leaders. Revere received the warning, and through darkness, he rode into history, crossing towns and villages, alerting colonial militia that British troops were moving. His warning spread quietly through communities, and by morning, militia forces stood waiting. Shots would soon be fired at Lexington and Concord, signaling the start of the revolution. The revolution also depended upon people whose names history barely remembers: farmers, blacksmiths, women making clothing and supplies, families feeding soldiers, messengers carrying information, citizens risking arrest for supporting independence. They didn't fight in famous battles. Their portraits don't hang in museums, yet without them, the revolution may not have survived. In 1781, the British surrendered at Yorktown. The war had finally reached its end. America had won independence, but victory had required far more than one general or one battle. It required thousands of people working together. Some carried muskets, some carried messages, some carried ideas, and together they carried a revolution. As America approaches its 250th anniversary, their legacy continues. We've shared just one more chapter in our great American story, and on this channel we will continue to explore those often forgotten or little-known stories of our shared past. We wanted to create exceptionally patriotic products that help preserve the American story with the America's 250th Anniversary Collection at our Printful store. Also, please like, subscribe, comment, and share, and thank you.